just I believe a tablespoon or a teaspoon in
Had
my
it just
food.
recently bled, was it something that had bled a while ago?
I want to say that it progressively like bled because the symptoms I experienced, like I try to go backwards in time to see when I can go back and
Uh-huh.
try to connect things. And I had like different symptoms and doing my research for, a couple weeks. My mom had noticed that I would take my left shoe off more frequently than I thought. Um,
Mhm.
and I would get slight headaches when I put glasses on, sunglasses. I would get a tension headache right behind my left ear. So I think it was just like a gradual, slow peak, as they would call it, and it just accumulated over time to that day where they picked up on it, and the the I wouldn't say crazy or ironic, but the interesting thing I would say is they found the same thing in my brother when he was when he was 4.
What?
So my brother suffers from, well, he lives with, I don't like to say suffer, he lives with epilepsy.
Uh-huh.
So he has a cavernous malformation as well in a different area, which is linked to him having seizures. Um,
So is it like a hereditary thing?
I would say that's what they were deeming. They would have to look back.
Mhm.
They said that the cavernous malformations is something that's more prominent in men, and it
Okay.
usually runs down the maternal side of the family, which will show my uncle suffers from seizures as well. So I would say it's something that is hereditary. And I was supposed to, when my brother had his first seizure at 4, I was supposed to go for MRIs and things like that, but it kind of was not pushed to the side, but trying to figure out what was going on with my brother was the spotlight at the time, and where everything just seemed fine with me
Uh-huh.
Well, and
until
I'm sure insurance probably didn't let you. I'm sure your mom probably asked, but insurance was like, nope.
But he
yeah.
doesn't have any symptoms or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably so, because even with symptoms, it's tough to, just flat out get an MRI and things like that. So what happened next? So yeah, I was in Robert Wood Johnson in New
Uh-huh.
Brunswick
Yeah.
for a week. And
Did
so
they do anything for the malformation or the mass once they found it?
so they they connected me with a neurosurgery team,
Mhm.
just to keep an eye on it, to see what the just to watch the progression over the week. And it was determined that they didn't have to perform surgery. At first they thought they were going to need to allow for like a release, so
Uh-huh.
they were talking about maybe just going in through the neck, like the back of the head and the neck area.
Yeah.
That's the direct path, and releasing the pressure. But they just gave me a steroid through the IV,
Hmm.
which reduced the swelling and allowed me to and stop the bleeding. So I didn't have to have any kind of surgery or anything. So it
That's
was
But
just
great.
potentially down the line, or
uh, just based on my age. Well, I was 29 when it happened. Now 31. I think that they said that my sports background played a lot into me being able to recover the way that I have, and my deficits, everything keeps shrinking back to normal. So
Mhm.
they're taking a more conservative approach, because the last year I've had, minimum or no setbacks.
Uh-huh.
So I think they say they, in their minds, if anything, something else were to happen, then they would consider removing the malformation, or what's called the gamma knife
Yeah,
procedure.
the gamma knife one. I've heard of that before. I have a friend who did the gamma knife.
Hmm.
Can
I've
I ask, did, oh,
go no, go ahead. I'll go after.
how, like, are they monitoring you? Like, did they tell you in 2 years we want to do another scan? Or like, is it just a let us know if you have symptoms
No,
type?
so I had been going when I first came home, I was going every 3 months for MRI. And as
Mhm.
you guys probably know, that can get pretty costly.
Definitely.
And I was just more so concerned with being under a magnet that often, that many times a year, and getting was the glenodium, which is the dye. So I would have to get MRI. I was usually in the tube for for an hour total, hour and a half, and they would split it between dye, no dye first, and then the glenodium dye.
Uh-huh.
And I was just concerned about long-term effects with that. So my neurologist decided that with my recovery rate that they would just cut it back to doing them annually. So
Mm-hmm.
so now I'll just go once a year for a scan. Similar to my brother, he followed the same progress until things he went 10 years seizure free at one point.
Wow.
So he only had to go if something came up. And once he got to about 16, 15, 16, the chemical changes kind of set some things off and the seizures reappeared. So me and him had just been, figuring this thing out together. But yeah, I go once a year now, annually for MRIs. Do my annual physical, unless I have a concern where I want to get checked out some other time.
Mm-hmm. I have a question for you actually, because you mentioned the whole vertigo thing.
Mm-hmm.
That linked to the cavernous angioma? I ask because my mom recently has developed like vertigo symptoms, and like we don't know what's causing it, or how long it's going to keep going on for, but it seems like she has like vertigo attacks like kind of a lot.
Yeah. So for me, it was linked to having like that bleed and the pressure where it happened. So the brainstem is responsible for coordination of the fine motor skills and
Sure.
hearing, and like blood pressure and heart rate, things like that. So they attributed the vertigo like symptoms to the bleed that happened at the brainstem. So because of the pressure,
Mm-hmm.
that's what they attributed it to, not just the malformation.
Okay. And so the malformation, I guess, technically is still there. It's just not bleeding anymore.
Right. So I still apparently, well, the malformation has shrunk based on my last MRI.
That's great.
Yeah, that's really great to hear.
Yeah, it has shrunk back to the size that you would typically see them show up on a MRI. And
Uh-huh.
my brothers at one point, they weren't able to see his on an MRI scan. So um, but they're still there. The chances that I was given for like a rebleed were, pretty great chances of it not happening. It was like a 70% chance of it never happening again, 70-30. Um, and then the Gamma Knife would just push it to 90-10, but
Right.
they wanted to see how much I could naturally heal at my age. So they took more of a cautionary approach.
In terms of like deficits or anything as a result of this, do you have anything?
Oh yeah. So I'll explain what like was affected when everything happened, and then I'll go into what I still experience now. So when everything, after my first couple, so I went from the hospital to a rehab facility down in Lawrenceville, New Jersey,
Yeah.
called St. Lawrence Rehabilitation Center.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got there, yeah, I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk. I couldn't. I still had like blurry vision. I suffered from what was called hypercusis, where it's sound sensitivity.
Oh,
So out of my left ear, because of the nerves on the left side, if noises get too loud or my brain tries to like process all the different noises, um, I'll get like a buzzing and it'll just instantly make me tired. So then that goes into neural fatigue that I still experience now. So speaking, I just took a nap before I got on because I was like, oh man.
very.
Um, then what it affected was it was weird because it affected the right side of my face, my facial muscles. So I didn't have control of the right side of my face. and then I didn't really have control of the left side of my body. So it was,
That's weird. I've never heard
Wow,
it like
yeah.
that before. Because I would
yeah,
think it would be the same side of your face as
Yeah.
the arm.
they said
Why
it was
is that?
because of where it happened. So at the brainstem, the cranial nerves, they kind of like, you know, one side of the brain operates the opposite side of, you know, the body. So
Right.
it was in a tricky, intricate place where it still affected the same side that it was, well, yeah, on as far as facial nerves, but then it affected the nerves on the left side of my body, which I'm left side dominant. So that was a big,
So am I, and I'm left side affected, and I'm a lefty.
yeah. So it was a like interesting experience, because my first thought was, you know, as easy as I might make this, like in my videos, it might seem like, you know, everything is there's highs and lows. So when I first got to rehab, you know, I had a positive mindset, but I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to write left-handed again.